Welcome, fellow bookworms, to Tibra's Den. My name is Whitney, and today I have a bit of a reading update for you. It's kind of gonna be very, vastly different conversation between these books I'm talking about. I'm gonna talk a little bit about my 25 Days of Bookmas books, which one of them is more of like a middle grade book, very, light, innocent. And then I'm going to be talking about my Nora Roberts book and Mandarin Orange Sunday, which are very adult books. And so, yeah, kind of two different themes. Originally, I planned on doing two different videos, but my reading the second half of the month kind of hit a wall, and I really kind of struggled to get through these books. And so originally I planned on, doing two separate videos, doing them earlier in the week. That just didn't happen. And you're also going to see videos back to back to back because my series Saturday video is going to be coming out tomorrow. I'm talking about the 13th book in the Dresden Files. And then I also have my July wrap up and my August TBR videos coming out. And like I said, originally I planned to space these out, but it's been a rough second half of the month, and so I'm going to be just kind of getting these videos out and start August kind of fresh. But yeah, we're going to be talking about two vastly different books, but they were all pretty enjoyable, and so we'll go ahead and get into it. As always, though, if you could remember to give this video a like, it really does help out the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on a thing. Well, let's go ahead and start with the two books that I ended up not reading. So I'll talk about my 25 Days of Bookmas books first, and then I'll go into the other two, which were actually quite similarly themed, and went really well together. But first, I was going to be reading The Serpent Bride and The Twisted Citadel by Sarah Douglas. This is a trilogy. I don't have the third book because my husband and sister-in-law picked out the second book, so I just got the first book so I could start at the beginning, and see if I like it. And I read about 66 pages of this first book, which is The Serpent Bride, and actually really enjoyed it. It was a bit disturbing. You have like this cult, I guess, essentially, and they use like human entrails to like read the future, which was a bit disturbing, but it did hook me. I was definitely very interested, but it is a more like complex fantasy, and the second half of the month I just did not have the brain capacity for that, and I enjoyed it enough. I just wanted to wait until I was in a better headspace, and I didn't have so many books to read that I could really just focus on these and enjoy them. I am going to go ahead and pick up the third one in the trilogy, and that way I can just binge read them because I really do prefer to do that. And so I'll pick up the third one. Probably won't get to these until the into the next year, but they'll be waiting for me, and I am excited to read these at some point, just not right now. So not actually a DNF. I'm pausing them, and I'll pick them back up at some point. So that is those two. The other one for my 25 Days of Bookmas is Paint the Wind by Pam Munoz Ryan. And this one is more of like a middle grade, I would say. You have 11-year-old Maya, and she is really into horses, but her paternal grandmother, who she lives with because her parents have passed, doesn't like her to talk about horses, won't let her talk about her mom. Horses are the only connection she has to her mom, but her grandma just doesn't like her. Blames her for blames Maya's mother for her son's death, essentially, and is very strict with Maya, like has all these rules and such. And so there's also this horse Art Artemisia, and she's a wild Mustang and runs with the wild Mustang herds. And Maya's maternal grandparent um, has ties up there to Artemisia. So, um, basically, it's kind of this adventure about this girl and falling in love with this horse and trying to save this horse, essentially. Um, Little bit, out there, again, kind of a theme with horse books like Saddle Club and such, you have this young girl and she's doing things that she has no business doing. But that's always kind of the theme with these horsey type things. And so yeah, she's kind of gets herself into a pickle and such. And her and Artemisia kind of form a bond. I really did like this. It talks about the BLM and the Mustang Roundup and such, which I thought was pretty cool. I didn't particularly like Maya. She tells a lot of lies. Like, she's not very honest. And you see why based on her experience with the paternal grandmother. Like, you understand why, but it just kind of got a little grating. But she did have a good growth throughout the book. And then her cousin is also just a bit, I mean, they're 11, but I thought the immaturity was amped up a bit, where a lot of times in these books you have a certain maturity and they're handling like adult things that they have no business handling. But yeah, this one you have the immaturity there, but then they're still going off and doing things that they shouldn't be doing. So, well, Maya is anyway. But overall, it was a solid read. Like, you kind of know that, like, when you watch like the Saddle Club and such, like that's kind of the nature of the beast. And so it really doesn't bother me too much. I did really enjoy the story overall. I gave it 3 stars. Was it amazing? No, but it was enjoyable for sure. So really did like this. If you're looking for a good like middle grade horse book, this is definitely one I think worth picking up for sure. I really did enjoy it. And then it has like all the um like glossary, I guess, in the back, so you learn more about like the terms and such used as far as like the saddle and the color of the horses and things like that, which was pretty cool as well. So definitely a solid, good read, good middle grade read. Um, for somebody who loves horses for sure. So those are my 25 days of Bookmas books. Now we're going to get into Genuine Lies by Nora Roberts and then Mandarin Orange Sunday by Angelique Durand. I guess let's start here. Both of these are kind of like rich and famous. Um, both kind of romance. This one is definitely very much more like R-rated. This one is not quite as bad. They both have trigger warnings for like abortion. So if that's something that would be upsetting for you, definitely keep that in mind. And then there's also um, trigger warnings for some abuse, and this one in particular, she does get essentially. So, well, it's not essentially, she does. So that's something to keep in mind with both of these. And then, like, kind of both of them have characters that like to like inflict pain and such. So, in this one, you have Julia. She's kind of more the main character, and you have Eve Benedict, who is like the last of the movie goddesses, and she decides she wants to tell her memoirs, so she hires Julia, who is a biographer, and then you also have Paul Winthrop, who is Eve's stepson, or was at one point, and they're still very close, and so he's kind of trying to protect Eve, and then you end up, people don't want Eve's memoirs coming out because she has a lot of dirt on a lot of different players. And so they start getting threatened, both Julia and Eve. And there's something else going on with Eve and there's kind of a reason why she's telling her memoirs, telling him now, and wanting Julia in specific to be the biographer to tell her memoirs. So I will say this one, especially in the beginning, didn't seem as refined as some of her other works. And I read books that are older than this one. This one was published in 1991. And so she has other books that are older, but this one had a few issues with like the writing and the grammar and such, especially in the first half of the book. By the second half, it definitely had that Nora Roberts feel, except the big thing that got to me was in the beginning, middle, and end, she said he lighted a cigar, not lit a cigar. He lighted a cigar 3 separate times, and I'm like, how did that get missed? It happened 3 separate times, and clearly you didn't use the correct grammar, and then your editor didn't catch it at all, and there was other those little mistakes, like, she was saying Eve, and there was an N on the end, like, little things that happen, when you're writing that just didn't get catch, so I don't or caught. Now I'm using improper grammar, but the lighted a cigar just really got to me. I'm like, I can see it happening once, but 3 separate times, like no. But like I said, once it kind of got to the end, like I was enjoying it. It definitely had what I like about Nora Roberts' books. Um, I will say I kind of knew based on the players. Like I didn't have the full reasons why figured out, but I kind of knew who one of the players was as far as leaving like the threats and such. Um, I did not get the connection on why this was. It was definitely a twist for me, and there was another twist that caught me by surprise that I didn't see coming until like right before like it kind of came out, and then I kind of caught on, but I didn't see it for the most of the book. And so yeah, I did enjoy kind of the two twists in this book, and it's just about Eve and kind of her. She's very open sexually, like she's very open, and she enjoys men, and so she's kind of telling her different stories with the different. She's been married 4 times and divorced and such, and then some of her other men she's been involved with as well. She kind of starts at her beginning when she first got to Hollywood and such. Um, and so yeah, and then like I said, you have a lot of players that are threatened by this because she has their dirty little secrets. So they're all, kind of involved a little bit, but overall, I did enjoy this. Like I said, not as refined, not as well edited as some of her other stuff, and that one grammar issue I did enjoy. But like I said, by the end of it, it definitely had Nora Roberts' feel, and those little grammar issues weren't as noticeable of any other than the lighted a cigar. And so I did get a solid 4 stars. Is it my favorite Nora Roberts book? No, but I did really enjoy it anyway. So that is Genuine Lies. Definitely, like I said, if you like that Hollywood royalty type feel, like the rich and famous um romance, this would be a good one. And then you have Julia and kind of her story, and she's more kind of reserved and shut off. And of course, Paul ends up being her love interest. And she has a son, which I always like that when there's a mother or a single father or whatever. I enjoy that. So pretty good, but not my favorite, and definitely was caught by surprise with the little grammar issues and the little editing things that didn't get caught. So let's go ahead and talk about Mandarin Orange Sunday by Angelique Durand. So this one I ended up getting because I remember it, my mom had it, and she didn't really restrict us, and she had some books, and when I was a teenager she said you can read any of those but not this one. And so it's always kind of stuck in my mind because I'm always like, well, why can't I read that one? And so I picked it up, and when I first got it I kind of flipped through and definitely caught a lot of steamy scenes and such. Well, I will say this one is basically you follow what's Solange, and it's just basically all her sexual exploits. Like that's what it is. And this typically is not a book that I would enjoy. It's very crude. They use the F word a lot. Uh, use like very derogatory terms for like body parts and such. And so it's typically not one I would enjoy, but I don't know. There was something, it just hooked me, and I was very invested in finding out what happens during Solange's journey. Um, because even though it's about all her kind of sexual exploits, she ends up having an affair with a married man, and she ends up essentially becoming his mistress. And so it's kind of that, like, is he really going to leave his wife? Is he not? Like, are they really in love? Kind of thing. And this one has so many different aspects. You have like this cowboy aspect, this rock star aspect, again, the rich and famous in Malibu aspect. There's also this French aspect to it. So there's kind of a lot to it. Like different little like things that people enjoy in romances and such. Like everybody likes a cowboy, but then he's also a rock star, and I have to say I did not like him, Jan. I did not like him. He's very toxic. Um, but throughout the journey, you are kind of rooting for them, even though he is toxic and such. And Solange too, I don't know because she's 32, and they end up having a 2 night stand initially, and she falls completely apart after 2 nights. Like, you spent 2 nights with this guy. Like, that's not enough to be so upset about this. Like, she completely fell apart. And also her relationship with her ex-husband Rand, I thought like she was very immature there as well, and he even calls her out on that, like, you're a child. Like, I mean, he's significantly older than her too, but just the way she acts, she's 32 years old, she acted more like she was 18. Um and so I did not enjoy that part. And I did kind of see there's kind of somebody sabotaging things. I did kind of see that coming. I kind of called that. Like, I knew there was something up there, but overall, like, it's very raunchy, it's very crude. Lots of steamy scenes. Like, the steamy scenes aren't as much as you would think. Like the smutty scenes that are very explicit aren't as much as you would think. But she's talking about sex throughout the whole book. Like, it's at the forefront for sure. But there's only a couple scenes that are really like explicit, I would say, and one of those is the scene. So, um, I would keep that in mind for sure. And then you don't understand like some of her actions either. Like, it's very toxic. But like I said, something hooks you and pulls you in. And I ended up really, really enjoying this, even though it is very toxic. It is very crude. It's not a book I would typically enjoy. There was just something that hooked me and pulled me in, and I wanted to know how it played out between her and Jan and such. Um, and so, yeah, I will say I enjoyed it. If you kind of like those very smutty books, this is it. And like I said, it does have like that openness about sex, and it's just all about her sexual exploitations and such. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I still don't know quite what to think, because it was like I don't enjoy these things, but I was very invested in the story. So, it does have substance there, even though on the surface it is very just what it is. There is some substance there for sure. This one, this is a kind of a hard book to get a hold of, but if you come across it and you like that kind of book, I would say pick it up. Definitely worth a try, if you're into that, but very, very adult, and be aware of the trigger warnings for sure. So that is it for those books. I'm going to go ahead and leave you guys here. Remember, I have some other videos coming out over the weekend, so definitely check those out. I'll have the Dresden File book tomorrow, and then I'll be doing my wrap up Sunday, and then my August TBR will come out on Monday. So hopefully you are subscribed and you'll check those videos out, and I will see you guys next time. Happy reading, everyone. Bye.